Hello and welcome. In this video, we will be discussing technical round part 2. For your student, this is the first question. What is Kasasha? The Kasasha is a rum which is made in Brazil from fresh sugarcane juice. So the specialty of this drink is that it is made from fresh sugarcane juice. Mostly the rums are made from molasses. It is not made from molasses, it is made from fresh sugarcane juice, and that is why the taste is more vegetal and fresh. Next question is, what is mezcal or mezcal? You must have heard tequila, that is from Mexico. Mezcal is also from Mexico, and it is made in 9 different regions, whereas tequila is made in 5 different regions. So कुछ similarity है and कुछ differences हैं from tequila. So it is also made from agave, but tequila is made from blue agave particularly, but it is made from other varieties of agave, and method of production is also a little bit different because tequila is made by steam ovens, whereas the pina in this cooked on wood fire, so it has more smoky kind of flavor. Let's go to the next question here. What is NOM? Is it also used for tequila? So Norma Official Mexicana. It is a kind of serial number which is given on the bottles of tequila, four number, and it denotes the distillery. It has the information about the distillery because there are so many different producers of tequila in Mexico. So to just differentiate the quality distilleries, so this number is given on the tequila bottles. So every tequila bottle carries this number, that is Norma Official Mexicano, and the short form is NOM. Let's go to the next question here. And what is single malt Scotch whiskey? In whiskey, there are so many different terminology used on the bottle. So single malt whiskey here we are discussing. Here we see the single. So single is about the distillery. Single doesn't mean that it is made from only one batch or only from one grain. So all these are myths. Single means only distillery. So it is made from single distillery, produced from single distillery. So as long as the distillery is same, you can have even different batches. It can contain whiskey from different casks. They can even blend, but still it will be called single malt. And what is malt? Malt is basically barley, made from barley. So if the whiskey is made from barley, that can be called malt. So that is single malt Scotch whiskey. Scotch is, it is made in Scotland, so it is Scotch. So single malt Scotch means a whiskey made by barley from single one distillery and Scotland, that can be labeled as single malt Scotch whiskey. Next here, what is malt? We just discussed that malt means barley. So next is, what is single grain Scotch whiskey? Same like single malt. The single is related to distillery, so it is from a single distillery. And grain means any grain other than barley. So if the barley is not used, other grains are used, then it will be called single grain whiskey. So it can be different batches also, but as long as the distillery is same, then it will be called single grain whiskey. And another thing, that it is made by the continuous distillation. So patent still se bani hai, so it is going to be light and low in flavor. The single grain whiskey is made from corn, wheat, rye, etc. Types of whiskey. From whiskey, there are different questions are asked. So let's see what are the different whiskies of the world. First of all, Scotch whiskey, which is from Scotland. Bourbon whiskey, which is from USA. Irish whiskey from Ireland, and Canadian, of course, from Canada, and Japanese whiskey. These are the famous whiskies of the world. Next, we will describe. We will again, classify Scotch, different Scotch. So that is the further classification. So first, for your knowledge, the classification of whiskey is based on this broad category, and then further it can be classified like we have discussed here. Types of Scotch. So Scotch is further classified. If you want to know what are the different Scotches, so single malt Scotch whiskey we had just discussed. Single distillery malt is barley and Scotch whiskey. Single distillery grain is wheat, corn, or rye, and made in Scotch, that is whiskey. And blended, so blended can be this plus this, and that will be called a blended whiskey. Sometime proportion of malt can be more and grain can be less. So if it is more and it is less, then the blended whiskey will be expensive, more expensive. And if it is This one grain is more and malt is single malt is less, then it is usually going to be cheaper. So blended whiskey, blended Scotch whiskey. Blended Scotch also can be classified into two different category, that is blended malt whiskey and blended grain whiskey. So this is the classification of the Scotch whiskey. Earlier we had seen the classification of whiskey. So it covers the entire world, different types whiskey which are very famous, and this describes about the Scotch. Next, difference between mezcal and tequila. We had just discussed that mezcal is also like a tequila which can be made from any agave, whereas tequila is made from only blue agave. So it is only blue agave is used in this production, and various species, about 50 different varieties of agave is used to make the mezcal. Here it should be 100% agave. There is allowed 51% of the agave. It has nine states where it is made in the Mexico, and it is made in five different states. Five different state, and Jalisco is the most famous, which is producing 99% of the tequila. The flavor of this is smoky and caramelized due to being roasted on the wood fire, and here aroma are neutral because it is baked in the oven with steam. So production method is different a little bit, and there are some similarity also. Let's go to the next question here. Difference between bourbon and Tennessee whiskey. Both are American whiskey, but what is the difference? There are some common traits, and there is some different differences are there. So first we discussed what are the common things. Aged in new oak charred barrels which are burnt barrels. Bottle at 80 proof, about 40% ABV, made with at least 51% corn. So it has to be at least 51% corn in both of them. But what are the differences? Can be made anywhere in the US. So bourbon you can make, like, US has 50 states. United States has 50 states. Bourbon you can make anywhere, any state. But Tennessee itself is a state in the south. So south part of the US is making more bourbon whiskey. So the whiskey which is the bourbon which is made in Tennessee is known as Tennessee, and it is specialized in its own form. Filtered through maple charcoal chip before it is barrel. So Tennessee whiskey is more filtered, so it has more light flavored. Must be made in Tennessee. We had discussed it should be made only in this region and produced including Jack Daniels and George Dickel. So this is the difference between bourbon and Tennessee. Both are very famous whiskeys of America. If somebody is discussing about American whiskey, they will discuss this, that what is bourbon and what is Tennessee. Both are very famous. Let's go to the next question. London Dry Gin. If somebody talks about gin, they're talking about London Dry Gin. It is so famous. In all the bar, you will find this gin. It is distilled by Patent Still, and it is light-bodied, light aroma gin, and it is used in cocktails also. And famous brand you will find in every shelf of bar usually: Bombay Sapphire, Beefeater, Gordon's, Chankery. These all are London Dry Gin. So this terminology you will find on the label, London Dry Gin. That means you need to understand that it is made by patent still, continuous still, and it is a light flavored gin. Let's go to the next question. What is the difference between whiskey and whiskey? KEY and KY, the spelling. KEY whiskey and KY whiskey. So usually bourbon, which is American, and Irish, which is from Ireland, these two area, it is mentioned as KEY. Rest of the world use KY. So Scotch, Canadian, even Indian whiskey or any other whiskey other than these two parts of the world will be mentioned whiskey, whereas bourbon, American, and Ireland, they will mention the KEY terminology on the whiskey bottle. Next, what do you understand by term Joven? So it is not Joven, it is a Joven. It is a Spanish term which is found on the Spanish wine and also on the tequila bottles. So if the beverage is rested in the barrel for a little bit time, then the term Joven is used. Let's go to the next question. What is peat and in which beverage it is used? In Scotch whiskey, it is used peaty, smoky flavor. So peat is basically a vegetable or grass decomposite in, especially in Isle region. So in this region, this kind of decomposed grass is taken and it is used for smoking the barley. Okay, so this barley pick up the smoky flavor, and finally the whiskey pick up a very good peaty flavor. So this peaty flavor is very much associated to the Scotch whiskies. Let's go to the next. What is compound gin? Compound is a type of economical cheap gin where the flavor of botanical is not added by different method, but it is simply added by maceration. Just leave the botanicals in the gin for some time at room temperature, or by adding essence, chemical essence, which is not good. So the compound gin are the cheap gin basically. What is sloe gin? Sloe is a kind of berry, like a plum. So it contributes a very good red color to the gin, and this type of gin is called, so these berries are soaked into the spirit in the gin, and it becomes very beautiful color. So that is called a sloe gin. Let's go to the next question here. All right, thank you so much. These were the questions for the part 2 of the interview questions. Thank you so much.